Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech. Today, we're going to connect the dots on a few stories that might seem totally unrelated at first. We're talking about a brand new AI from OpenAI, a simple browser setting, and a massive cloud outage. Stick with me, because when we piece them all together, they paint a really fascinating picture of the digital world we're all living in. So this is the big question for today's explainer. What on earth connects an AI that thinks like a hacker, a web browser, and a huge internet meltdown? The answer, as you're about to see, tells us something really important about the state of technology right now. Let's jump into the first piece of this puzzle. All right, first up, we have OpenAI. They've just shown off a new tool that's, well, it's a huge leap forward. Not just for defending our software, but for actually thinking like the people trying to break it. Let me introduce you to Arvar. OpenAI calls it an agentic security researcher. Now, that word agentic is really the key here. It means Arvar isn't just a dumb scanner looking for problems. It acts on its own, kind of like a human expert, to actively hunt down and figure out security flaws. So, how does this thing actually work? Well, it's pretty wild. Arvar is constantly watching code as it's being written. It uses its AI brain to spot something that looks weak. But here's the cool part. It doesn't just flag it. It actually tries to exploit the flaw itself, but in a safe little sandbox environment to make sure it's a real threat. And then, this is the real game changer, it suggests a fix. It writes the code to patch the hole. Of course, a human still has to give the final okay, but the whole process, from finding the problem to solving it, is pretty much automatic. Now, to really get why this is such a big deal, you gotta compare it to the tools we have now. Traditional tools are basically just pattern matchers. They scan for known red flags and then hand a developer a giant list of potential problems they have to sift through. Arvar is completely different. It reasons about what the code is doing, it proves the threat is real, and then it hands you a solution. It's a massive upgrade. And listen, this isn't just some theory in a lab. Arvar's already out in the real world, and it's found and helped fix 10 different vulnerabilities in major open source projects. We're not talking about small stuff either. These were serious enough to get official security IDs, meaning they were legitimate threats that are now gone thanks to this AI. The performance numbers are just wow. When they tested it against a whole library of known real-world security flaws, Arvar found 92% of them. I mean, think about that. Human teams can spend weeks, even months, hunting for a single bug. This kind of accuracy at machine speed, it could totally change the game for cybersecurity. So it begs the question, right? We're building these unbelievably smart AI tools that can play both offense and defense. But does that mean we're all safe now? I mean, what good is the most advanced lock in the world if you stick it on a door that's barely hanging on its hinges? Let's move to our next piece of the puzzle. And that brings us to story number 2. We're going to pivot from that futuristic AI hacker to something way more basic. We're talking about the fundamental lock and key for the entire internet. Okay, so here's the situation. The good news is that most of the time you spend in Google Chrome, about 97% of it is secure. It's using HTTPS. But that leaves this 3% gap of insecure connections. Now, 3% might not sound like a lot, but at the scale of the internet, that's millions of interactions every single day that are potentially exposed. So Google's fix is a feature called HTTPS first. It's super simple, really. It just tells your browser to always try making a secure, encrypted connection first. The whole idea is to make security the default setting, not something you have to worry about. But this is where things get a little weird. This feature's been around as an option since 2022, but Google isn't planning on making it the default for everybody until October of 2026. Yeah, you heard that right. That's a 4-year road trip just to flip a switch on a basic security feature. And that makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why is it taking 4 years? It points to this strange friction that exists in our digital world. Even when we know exactly what the secure thing to do is, actually getting it done across the whole web is a slow, complicated mess. Which brings us to our final and maybe most dramatic piece of the puzzle. Okay, so we have brilliant AI on offense, and we have slow-moving basic defense. But what happens when the very foundation that everything is built on just breaks? This is the story of a massive cloud outage. Just picture it. One Tuesday morning, Microsoft's Azure cloud platform just went down. And for 8 solid hours, that's an entire workday for millions of people. A huge portion of Microsoft's services and all the businesses that rely on them were just gone. 8 hours of digital silence. So what caused this epic failure? A sophisticated cyber attack? Some crazy complex bug? Nope. According to Microsoft's own report, it was this: an inadvertent tenant configuration change. To put that in plain English, it was human error, a simple mistake. And right here, you can see the digital dominoes falling. That one little configuration change in a core service, think of it as the main traffic cop for the entire Azure cloud, started a chain reaction. Nodes started failing, connections timed out, and all of a sudden, things like Microsoft 365 and thousands of other apps just went dark. One tiny push, and the whole thing came tumbling down. So let's pull it all together now. We've got our AI hacker, our basic browser setting, and our massive outage. What do they tell us when we put them all side by side? Well, they show us this incredible tension at the heart of our modern world. On one hand, we are creating these absolutely brilliant AIs that can find the tiniest, most complex flaws in our code. And on the other hand, the whole global system can still be brought to its knees by one person making one simple mistake. This table really says it all, doesn't it? On the cutting edge of attack, you've got AI like Arvar. At the very foundation of defense, it takes us years just to roll out basic security. And the fragile reality of it all is that a single wrong click can cause a global outage. We've built this incredibly sophisticated world on a foundation that can be surprisingly brittle. Which leaves us with one last big question to chew on. As our systems get smarter and more complex and more connected than ever before, are we actually making them more fragile? Is the trade-off for all this amazing innovation a system that's more vulnerable than ever to that simple, unpredictable domino effect? If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.